There's no proposal yet. Chair Gensler, in his speech recently, he talked about talked about some of the things SEC is looking at, and there's going to be a proposal soon. But it basically centers around the market structure as it relates to how retail order flow is handled in the marketplace. He's trying to address two main issues: whether retail in the current market structure, whether retail investors are getting the best price possible. And the second is whether the playing field between wholesalers, where almost all of the retail order flow goes to today, and exchanges, where he would like to see more of this retail flow move to, are they on the same level playing field, right? And what can be done to make that playing field sort of similar, with the main goal of creating more competition in the market. So today, all the retail flow goes to wholesalers. There are payment for order flow arrangements between retail brokers and wholesalers, and there is no order by order competition that if a Robinhood or a Schwab, they were to generate a retail order, it's already predestined to either Citadel or Virtu, let's say 80% of the times, and a couple of other wholesalers. There's no competition that who can give me the better price for this particular order. It's predestined to one of these wholesalers. So what he's trying to do is, can all market participants in competition provide better liquidity to retail? And this way retail would get better prices, as well as, the retail flow is the best flow in the marketplace, right? Can institutional investors, such as pension funds and other market makers, also compete for that, and can we make that interaction possible, so to speak? Then he sort of went through in his speech a number of things that can be done to basically make this possible. One of which is tick size harmonization. Today exchanges can only trade in penny increments, but wholesalers can fill a retail order at any price, virtually any price, right? 99.9986, whatever, right? So, and he talked about, over 50% of the volume in the marketplace actually is happening between this penny. So that basically means that there's demand in the marketplace where the fills should happen in less than a penny. So can that tick size be harmonized across wholesalers and exchanges? So that was number one. And the second, which I think is much more important, is how can you create this order by order competition? So he's hinted at, let's look at the options market structure where retail order flow can be competed via auctions in the exchanges. So that's sort of another thing he's talked about, that basically before a broker sort of just gives an order to a Citadel or a Virtu, will they be mandated to create an auction via an auction mechanism, try to get the best price possible where everyone can provide liquidity to that retail order flow? We've proposed a model which I think is a lot simpler than this, which is basically allowing exchanges to sort of create another limit order book. So they have one book, which is, for all the investors and all the market, which is the current book, but you could create another limit order book, which is just for retail. So there's no need for an auction in that kind of a market structure. You basically have two limit order books running, one for everyone and one is for retail only. And automatically what's going to happen is that retail only limit order book will basically have, much tighter bid offer spread, right? And it's going to be visible to all the retail brokers. So retail brokers, because they have to provide best execution, now they cannot say that, okay, hey, we just gave you slightly better price than what's available on the exchanges by sending this to wholesalers. Now they would automatically be forced to trade in this alternative sort of limit order book, which would have a much tighter bid offer spread, which I call retail NBBO, so to speak. But auction mechanism is not bad either, right? That basically tries to accomplish the same thing, but via an auction mechanism. I think there are pros and cons of creating an auction versus creating a separate limit order book. but they both basically get to the same point. It would be a lot, right? So it's okay because, pretty much everything in the marketplace is electronic. So yes, if there's an auction going on, you can't expect like someone, clicking and sending, an order to trade in that auction. It would all have to be automated. But most of the institutional trading is automated. Most of the market making is automated. That is all right. If it was still, manual trading, but, then basically a big part of the market would be left out in an auction type of a market structure. Depends on who you are on Wall Street. Before you talk about Wall Street, I think the biggest thing that there are obviously going to be winners and losers, right? Every regulation has winners and losers, right? But I think the ultimate litmus test is whether, investors are going to benefit from it. And both retail investors and institutional investors are going to benefit from it, because retail investors are going to get much, much better price improvement than they do today, because it's going to be in competition, right? Institutional investors are going to benefit because they would be able to provide liquidity to retail order flow. But when it comes to Wall Street, wholesalers are obviously going to be the biggest losers of this kind of a change in the marketplace, and I expect exchanges to be the biggest winners, from this kind of a change. Sue the SEC, that seems to be happening more and more often, right? It's not something that I'm coming up with. I mean, I think they've spoken about it or hinted about it. It's billions of dollars of revenues, right? And it's really economic rent from the market structure we have. Because of lack of competition, wholesalers are providing price improvement, but they're not providing enough price improvement, right? And they are able to keep a big portion of it to themselves, right? Because they're not trading in competition. And that economic rent, the excess profit, is just going to disappear with this kind of a market structure, right? And it's literally billions of dollars of revenues every year. And they're not happy about it, right? And they're going to protest, and it's not going to be easy to get this regulation through. But if it is written well, devil is in the details. What is the eventual sort of law, so to speak, if it does get passed? But the spirit of the law is really to help retail and institutional investors, and this is something, my firm and myself, we've spoken about it. We've been speaking about it for almost over a year, and we're really glad to see, it taking the shape that it is taking right now. I think it should be sometime soon, based on all the speeches that Chair Gensler has given. It's a big undertaking, because Chair Gensler, he did not go with, okay, let's just ban PFOS, which I think is a good thing. Because I think that would not have been received very well, and that would not have fixed the actual problem, which is how do you create order by order competition for retail? So he's doing the right thing, which is let's look at it holistically. Let's level the playing field between wholesalers and exchanges, which is why the flow is going to wholesalers in the first place. So let's look at everything that's creating this segmentation and that's creating this concentration and market inefficiencies. And that's lack of competition, that's, lack of tick size harmonization, that's lack of clarity on what a BestEx rule is. SEC does not have a BestEx rule, right? Only FINRA has a BestEx rule. So that's another thing Chair Gensler is talking about, that, okay, hey, should SEC come up with a BestEx rule? And perhaps that rule is going to be, okay, you can't just look at the average price improvement across the market makers. You need to evaluate order by order whether you're giving the best price, right? He's talking about, looking at maker-taker market structure on the exchanges, because that's very similar to a payment for order flow. So I think there's a lot in this rule, and I think there's going to be a lot of comments as well whenever the proposal comes out. So it's a pretty complicated implementation, but I think it's needed. It definitely creates more power for exchanges, but hopefully the rule is written in the right way that exchanges cannot sort of misuse misuse the rules, so to speak, right? And one of the biggest concerns I have is that, let's say that there is this auction mechanism, but exchanges can do price discrimination on who pays how much to participate in this auction, based on their volumes and things like that, right? And if they're able to do so, then we're back to square one, really, right? Then you might as well not do this, because what that would do is that, the wholesalers, the biggest wholesalers, will try to create that, regain that power, so to speak, by being sort of the only or one of the few participants who can really practically provide liquidity, using these auctions, which is what is happening in the options market today. These auctions exist, but because there is this price discrimination, the flow is still captive to some wholesalers, right? So that's why I said devil is in the details. And we really don't care for wholesalers or exchanges, right? We care for, okay, are the investors, winning in the marketplace or not? And if the rules implemented the right way, I think it can lead to a lot of savings for both retail and institutional investors.